Karen Diver. I'm a faculty fellow with the College of St. Scholastica here in Duluth, Minnesota.
But you did work at the White House, correct?
I did. I was the special assistant to the President for Native American Affairs.
President Obama.
President Obama. And then I was a former tribal leader, the chairwoman of the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa, here in the Duluth area.
So one of the things you said when you spoke here at the Great Lakes Commission meeting here in Duluth, one of the first things you said is that Native Americans were finally invited to this. I'm paraphrasing and not saying it properly, but you said something, this is long overdue. Could you repeat that?
It's not that long of a history where you had this multi-jurisdictional effort amongst traditional government, but since 2004, Great Lakes tribes had an accord where they all agreed together, both First Nations and Great Lakes tribes, and had asked for participation around decision-making on the Great Lakes.
And it's now happening, but you did say it's taken a bit longer than it should have, correct?
Well, it also needs to be formalized. I think that it's nice to start out with guests and test the waters a little bit, but there are tribal governments, tribal interests, and treaty rights, so they really do need to be integrated long-term into decision-making.
And right now they are not. They're not officially part of the decision-making of the Great Lakes Commission.
That's correct, and so unless states are consulting with tribes and or provinces are with First Nations, their voice is really through that federal state kind of hierarchy and doesn't include tribal sovereigns.
You talked about the beauty of this area, the hundreds of thousands of years of history, and that the voices of the elderly and of, there was a word you used which I should have on my tongue right now, but it's about tribal
Traditional
knowledge.
ecological
Yes.
knowledge.
So will you explain that and what you think is missing right now as we study the Great Lakes and make decisions about the Great Lakes?
I think that tribal natural resource management is really informed by a very long history. It's informed by modern day science, and it's informed by traditional ecological knowledge. And that's observational and use knowledge that tribes have developed through the generations that have allowed them to be good stewards and users of natural resources as they hunt, fish, and gather and implement their treaty rights. And it's a perspective that is very much informed by culture and spirituality, and in forums like this where we are looking at conservation and stewardship activities, those voices would probably add value.
And it's not just the science, and also this is a kind of science.
It absolutely is science. I mean, observation and use and monitoring over time is very much a scientific method, and so rather than marginalize traditional ecological knowledge, I was making the case today that it actually is science.
What would you like people to take from this Great Lakes Commission meeting about the future of this area, of the lakes, and of Native American involvement in the future of these lakes?
I think that what's most important to me individually is that these are traditional homelands for our people, and we're never really going to leave. And so our commitment is actually for centuries, not for the next political cycle, not for the next crisis that we may have to deal with, or the next permit, that we really do have to look long term, and tribes should be a part of that because this is their homeland.